everyone. This is Chris with Quest Network Services. We'll just give people a few minutes here, extra minutes to get on to our scheduled webinar for Zero Trust Security. And I'm here with our guest from ThreatLocker, Freddy Padrino.
Hey, pleasure to meet everyone. How's everybody doing today? I hope everything is going well.
Yep, hope everyone's doing well. Please feel free to use the Q&A to put questions in there, and of course you can use the chat as well. So we'll just give it an extra minute or so here, and then we'll get started. Hello everyone, my name is Kristofer Luck. I'm with Quest Network Services. I started my company a little over 30 years ago as a bulletin board service, and right now what we do is we do IT support for small to medium-sized businesses, and helping people secure their organizations from threats that are out there. And Freddie, if you want to introduce yourself, let the people know what it is you do.
Thank you. And hello, my name is Freddy again. I'm a solutions engineer within ThreatLocker. We're a Zero Trust endpoint protection platform. My goal is to assist organizations in training, onboarding, reviewing of best practices when it comes to Zero Trust mindsets, and also using our Zero Trust solution.
All right. So, Zero Trust, don't be too trusting. I'm going to put out a questionnaire out there, and let's see what you guys say here. How many of you have heard of Zero Trust before? Or have you heard of Zero Trust before? So feel free to answer yes or no. Okay, I think we have everybody responding here, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and then I'll share the results here. So about two of you know what it is, and one doesn't know what it is. So, so let's see what we got. Summary about what Zero Trust is and what it isn't. We're going to talk about the benefits of Zero Trust, the top Zero Trust misconceptions, best practices for implementing Zero Trust. And so Zero Trust, what is it? So it's a strategic framework to boost security posture, a model that insists on verification before granting access, cybersecurity approach based on a motto, never trust, always verify. Basically, what you want to do is implement the least amount of privileges and always assume that there's a breach. And what it isn't, it isn't a specific product or solution, a one-time event, or replacement for all security measures. And here's a quick 1 minute from someone from ThreatLocker explaining what Zero Trust is.
So technically Zero Trust is a framework, but for me, it's a mindset. It's a way of looking at cybersecurity. Fundamentally, it's the principle of least privilege. So just because something can run doesn't mean it needs to be able to run. Just because something can access the entire internet doesn't mean it needs to be able to access the entire internet. And just because something can access your files and your data doesn't mean it needs to be able to access your files and your data. So what that means is block by default, allow by exception. Okay, so if you think about your traditional model, your approach to cybersecurity, it's to permit by default and block by exception. So allow everything to run unless we know it to be bad. What Zero Trust means and what ThreatLocker does is to block by default, allow by exception. So block everything from running except those things that need to run in your environment. Block everything from happening except those things that need to happen in your environment. So it's a mind shift change to your traditional approach, but it's extremely effective from a cybersecurity perspective.
All right.
Awesome. It's always great to hear. That's Rob. That's our Chief Product Officer. He's been around with ThreatLocker for quite a while, so he knows the ins and outs of ThreatLocker and cybersecurity over the last few years.
So the benefits of Zero Trust, it improves data protection. Framework can help you limit access to only those resources necessary for business operations, thus improving data protection by reducing the likelihood of unauthorized access. Enhances visibility across the network by implementing a zero trust approach. You'll have a detailed understanding of who or what is accessing your network, including the time and location of each access request. This enables you to identify potential security threats more effectively and respond quickly. Reduces the attack surface by limiting access to only necessary resources. Zero Trust helps reduce the attack surface and minimizes the risk of cyber threats such as supply chain attacks, ransomware attacks, and insider threats. The benefits of Zero Trust: supports adherence to compliance regulations. Zero Trust helps you meet compliance regulations that can eventually help you avoid costly penalties and reputational damage. Minimize the risk of cyber threats. A Zero Trust approach helps you achieve comprehensive security and minimize the risk of growing cyber threats. Improve cyber resilience. The Zero Trust approach can give you increased control over your network and security, which can in turn limit the impact and severity of successful cyber attacks. This improves your overall cyber resilience. Increases efficiency through automation. Implementing Zero Trust helps you streamline security processes and reduces the need for manual intervention, which increases efficiencies and reduces the likelihood of human error. The top Zero Trust misconceptions. Zero Trust is a strategy, not a product. A common misconception is that the Zero Trust approach is all about deploying a Zero Trust product. However, Zero Trust is a holistic approach and cannot be achieved by merely deploying a product. Zero Trust is too complex. Many businesses think that Zero Trust is overly complex. However, it's achievable with the help of a trusted IT service provider like us, who can assess your organization's current state and develop a realistic roadmap toward a comprehensive and practical Zero Trust security framework. Implementing Zero Trust may require additional resources and tools. Still, it's worth it. While implementing a Zero Trust security framework may require other resources and tools, it's not necessarily expensive, and IT service provider like us can help you identify solutions that minimize expenses, increase efficiency, and yield the best business outcomes. The costs associated with implementing Zero Trust are dwarfed compared to the potential fallout from a cyber incident. And lastly, Zero Trust can balance security and convenience. Some organizations believe Zero Trust will make everything more difficult for employees. However, Zero Trust can balance security with convenience to ensure users can access the applications and resources needed to perform their jobs. Best practices for implementing Zero Trust: continually verify. You should strive to implement a never trust, always verify approach to security by consciously confirming the identity and access privileges of users, devices, and applications. This means deploying strong identity and access management controls that ensure only authorized users can access resources. Limit access to resources by implementing just-in-time access, where access is only granted for a determined amount of time. The principle of least privilege, which provides granular access controls and role-based access policies so that users will only have access to the necessary things that pertain to their job role. And segmented application access, which ensures employees can only access applications they are permitted to access. Assume breach and minimize impact. Always assume that there was a chance for a breach and constantly think about how to reduce the attack surface or blast radius. Continually check to ensure security measures such as network segmentation, monitoring, and incident response planning are in place to lessen the repercussions. And now we're going to have Freddy do a demo on what ThreatLocker does. So I'm going to take the controls off of me, and now Freddy will have the ability to share his screen.
Thank you so much, Kristofer. And again, pleasure everybody for joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm really going to introduce how ThreatLocker helps achieve that zero trust mindset. Because like Chris mentioned, at times that goal seems unattainable, especially with the amount of processes, work effort that you might have to do to reach that level. And that's where a solution like ThreatLocker, alongside organizations such as Quest Networks, can achieve by implementing the solution and incorporating that mindset pretty easily. So I'm gonna go ahead and share this demo here. If any questions you guys have, please we can answer them at the end of the demonstration. But feel free to ask them when ready. Okay. So here we have the ThreatLocker portal. So the management of the solution all comes from this portal. It is a cloud-based solution. All we would have to do is deploy out an agent to the devices that the organization has. So workstations, desktop, laptops, servers, as many as you need to, whether on Windows or Mac, for example. Now, as we deploy out those devices, the initial part of Zero Trust is, of course, creating that rule set, trying to figure out what needs to run in the environment, what shouldn't be running. But of course, what's out there already, what's on these computers or these other devices. And by default, when ThreatLocker gets deployed, we start off by putting the devices into a learning mode. So before we start enforcing any rules, we help you discover, help find out what is happening on the devices, what's currently on there, what applications, what tools. Maybe some users downloaded some video games, or somebody has 50 different browser extensions. This could be a good way just to identify that to begin with. Now, from there, the next steps is the learning phase is to see what it has cataloged. And that's where someone like myself, a solutions engineer with ThreatLocker, would assist in the review process with the onboarding, trainings. So my goal would be to essentially look at application control, one of our first modules here within ThreatLocker, to help build up a list of policies. When we first jump in here, we're going to see the full list of applications that were discovered by ThreatLocker, maybe 7-Zip, Adobe, Audacity, Google Chrome, maybe some of your security management software, maybe some of your drivers that you may have on your computer. Whatever was installed or was running or was updating during that learning mode, ThreatLocker will catalog. And not just catalog, it'll also give you some information about where these applications are being developed, where they're, what they are, how business appropriate or risky they are, as well as what kind of potential risk may be involved with these applications, as well as some mitigation strategies to protect you and your users. Now, as we help you identify these applications, we'll actually show you how many devices you may have out there using those applications. Maybe, for example, Dell's running across all your devices, or perhaps something like Audacity, maybe running on one computer. Now, from here, we're not just cataloging where something is, what that application is. We're also going to go ahead and create policies. Our policies within ThreatLocker is what enforces the rules of what needs to run in the environment. Perhaps it's a single computer that may require some policies for their own unique tools, or perhaps something that's more widespread across the organization. Perhaps the group of workstations needs to go ahead and use Microsoft Office, Notepad, or some of your most common tools out there. Now, especially when we talk about something like application control, application allow listing, whitelisting, blacklisting, as it's been called in the last few years. It's been around for a long time, but it's always been considered a very troublesome tool because we require so many people to just manage it and upkeep it. Because what would happen if something like Microsoft Office updated? Well, all your rules would have to be revised. Or what if Notepad, Chrome, Windows, Dell, any of your applications in general, what if they all update and release a new version of their files today? That could be a few hundred, if not a few 100,000 files to verify in a span of a few hours. So it really required your own dedicated team to work on that type of security. So it was very unattainable for a lot of small organizations or organizations that did not have the manpower for it, really. So this is where ThreatLocker comes in, because to make this very easy, especially for Quest Networks, so they can implement this very fast on their side, we have our built-in applications. Built-ins are applications that ThreatLocker manages for you. We have a team that's working all in Orlando, Florida, in our headquarters, that's working 24/7, that their goal is to keep track and maintain the files and updates and versions of these applications. So what that means is, let's say something like Microsoft Office releases their new update today. Our team goes ahead, verifies those files, captures them, makes sure that they're legitimate, make sure that they are from Microsoft themselves, that they're not doing anything suspicious, and then they'll add it to the corresponding built-in. And from there, the end user, their next step is just to run the update. That's it. Right now, ThreatLocker is covering over 9,000 different built-in applications, from your most common applications, your mainline business tools, as well as different security and management solutions. So a lot of the work that normally other solutions or perhaps previous strategies used to involve basically gets taken care of pretty much automatically by ThreatLocker. So a lot of that early work done like that. Now, at the same time, from here, one of the goals that we want to do with ThreatLocker is to also review what else was running on the devices. And especially in Zero Trust, we want to know what's out there, because it's good to be aware of what's currently happening on our devices. And one of the best tools we have here within ThreatLocker is the Unified Audit. Our Unified Audit will show you essentially a data log of all the actions that took place on the devices. Perhaps anything that ran in the last few days, from which computer, which user ran that file or did that execution, the file in question, and if ThreatLocker allowed this action or if it was denied, perhaps. We can even take a closer look at the file information just to get more details about where it's coming from, what certificates does it have, what vendor does it come with, what policies are they matching to. If you need to do a deep dive with the audit logs, you can review that. And not just for files being ran. You can look this for files being installed, network connections being made, files being modified or moved around the organization, maybe even deleted. Or if you want to keep track of those more powerful users, anybody who has admin rights, we can actually keep track of which users have admin rights and what they're doing with those elevated privileges as well. So all that detail, all that information, ThreatLocker's learning. And whether it's myself or Quest Networks helping in onboard the solution for the organization, our goal would be that after that learning mode, we want to go ahead and secure your devices. Because the next step is to say, all right, this is what's recognized. This is what needs to run on our computers. But anything else beyond that, anything else that we've never seen before, unknown software like video games, browser extensions, maybe something more dangerous like ransomware or malware, or the brand new 0-day that's affecting every organization nowadays. What's going to happen if something runs that we've never seen before? ThreatLocker is going to check your policy list, and if it's not recognized, we will hit a default deny. This default deny blocks everything that we do not recognize. And let's walk through an example, because in this day and age, cybersecurity is affecting every single one of us, from the highest level executive to the simple front desk worker who's helping out in an office. Because at any point, somebody could get something like this through an email. They could get maybe like a download for a file. And I'll use TeamViewer like this as example. Now, TeamViewer is a very popular remote access tool. A lot of organizations do work with it to help out their end users. Maybe it's vendors coming in to help out their clients to remote in and do some troubleshooting. It is quite popular. But what happens if this is actually something dangerous pretending to be TeamViewer? That happens more often than not. Well, our security tools like our antiviruses and our endpoint detection response tools will act on it. They'll go ahead and say, hey, that's malicious. Don't let it run. We know about it. Let's stop it right then and there. Good. But what if it's actually TeamViewer? What if it's the legitimate file? Well, our security tools will normally go ahead and scan it and say, oh, it's TeamViewer. Let it on through, which could be fine. But if it's not a tool that you work with, or it's not something that you're familiar with, should it be running in the first place? Well, in this situation, if somebody tries to run this on my computer, it gets blocked by default. That's how ThreatLocker implements zero trust. We're not saying this is good or bad. All we're doing is checking to see if it's part of your policy list. And if it's not part of your policy list, it shouldn't be running in the first place. That's how ThreatLocker is a proactive solution. We're not reactive here. The end user will receive a pop-up on their end, which they can then send a request if this is something that they do need access to. They can actually fill out a reasoning on why they need access to this application. Maybe they need it for a specific job, a vendor, maybe it's a task at hand. And they can send a request so the administrators who are managing the ThreatLocker solution can review it, whether that's Quest Networks or somebody within the organization. From there, when somebody gets notified that the response center, something has been sent up here, the administrators can take a look at who's requesting the file, take a look at the file itself, and they can even do a deep dive to figure out what this application is. Perhaps we need to go ahead and figure out what files or file paths with certificates are attached to this, or perhaps we need to check with VirusTotal just to get an extra check on what other vendors are saying about this file, which in this case, they do say that there's nothing detected here, which is hopeful. But the thing is, this is only looking at the first file. So what about the next file that runs up to the installer and the next one and the next one? Do we need to do this over and over again for each individual file? Well, we don't have to. One of the quick ways that we can actually assist with this with ThreatLocker is with our matching applications. Because here, ThreatLocker will actually let you know that this file can be recognized by our built-ins. In this case, the TeamViewer built-in. So what this means is that our team has already verified this software. We already know what it is. We know what it's supposed to do. We know what other files are associated with the installation, the update, or the running of the software here. So these built-ins have been addressed already by us. So all that extra workflow or that extra time that would be needed to just verify that information, done like that. Simple. That quickly, so we can that's how quick we can be to verify this information. So the question really becomes now, do we need this software? Do we need to allow this to run? We can allow it to run on a single device to make it more secure, saying that only that one user has the power to use that application, maybe a group of computers, or perhaps the entire company. The entire organization needs access to TeamViewer. Sure, let's make sure that they can all use it without any problem. Or perhaps maybe this is temporary. This is only like a one-time use. All right, let's modify this policy to only be active for an hour. We can allow users to install and run the software, but then after 1 hour, we'll block them from running it again. So if you know that it's something that they shouldn't be having access to for longer than they should, you can control that also with ThreatLocker. And let's go ahead and talk back about admin rights. Nowadays, if you talk to a lot of organizations, especially if you start dealing with compliance requirements or insurance requirements, usually a lot of these requirements start labeling that admin rights need to be stripped away from your typical end user. Now, of course, that seems pretty straightforward, but think about what happens then. If the user needs to install software, maybe do some troubleshooting, update an application, it might require admin rights. Now, of course, if the user doesn't have the admin rights, an administrator must jump in, assist the end user, maybe work with them directly, maybe have to log in on the device to provide credentials as necessary. All that work is normal. It's been around for probably a long time now, but the management can sometimes be overwhelming because what if you need to do the same process across 30 computers, the same job over and over again? Well, that might take, depending on the job, a few hours, if not a few days. So to make this very easy, very simple to manage, and more importantly, more secure, we have a piece of ThreatLocker known as our elevation control, that we can actually elevate applications as local administrators. So this is another part of Zero Trust, that should the end user have full admin rights to the whole computer? Most likely not. But for the tasks that they need, ThreatLocker can give those permissions only for those applications, not the entire computer, not the whole user. As you can see here, we can also go ahead and do that for the next few hours, the next few days, or forever if necessary, if it needs to run for that long. Or if it's a one-time update, only have the elevation for 1 hour, and after 1 hour, no more of those privileges. Simple as that. Whatever the case is, whatever is needed, we can go ahead and create a rule here or approve the software and notify the end user to let them know that their request has gone through. So there's not much of a wait time to verify this. A user could request this, send a administrator can work on this, and within a minute or so, after the approval goes through, the user gets notified and they can run the software just like that. That's how quickly ThreatLocker can be to not only to assist in the verification of what the software is, but also in making sure that the users can keep doing their daily task as necessary. Anything you'd like to add there, Chris?
No, that was awesome. This is pretty much what we use to secure all of our clients' systems. We use the ThreatLocker system, and it works amazingly. Give you a real world situation. We had a client that we had deployed ThreatLocker on all their workstations and a production server, and they had an old server that we were going to be decommissioning, but we hadn't gotten around to decommissioning it yet. But we didn't put ThreatLocker on the old server. It was pretty much just sitting there, not really doing anything anymore. And some bad actor out there found its way into their network, and they attacked the server that we were going to decommission, and then they tried to go elsewhere on the network and were blocked by ThreatLocker. As soon as they tried to access the production environment and the servers and the workstation, they were immediately denied. And so ThreatLocker paid for itself on that day, preventing a system-wide breach and ransom attack. So I wholeheartedly love the ThreatLocker solution.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a story that I hear quite often with ThreatLocker. Those, thank goodness ThreatLocker was there. But I've been also hearing the lot of stories of, well, if only we had ThreatLocker at that time, we might have saved a lot of money at that point. So it's definitely that mindset of cybersecurity trust that gives that, ability to sleep well at night, knowing that something malicious or something dangerous won't run on our devices.
Absolutely.
Now this is just one example, and if I had a few more minutes here, I just want to show one last example here with another part of ThreatLocker, because we understand that the allow listing here, the application control, is not all that it needs to be, because especially when it comes to this day and age, yes, blocking unknown software, very powerful on its own. But as we've seen in the last few years and recent events, the biggest concern out there is not really the malicious.exe or ransomware.msi or command file, whatever it is. Nowadays, what the dangerous part is, it's the actual tools that you work with, your everyday solutions, your most common applications, that they get vulnerabilities or exploits being found every single day. And we've heard about these. Let's think about, what was it? A very common application, Microsoft Office. It had a vulnerability, what was it, close to 3 years ago now? The Felina exploit, where Office could talk to PowerShell and the diagnostic tool of Windows to push out scripts to perhaps do something malicious on the environment. Or perhaps let's talk about a real world scenario that affected a lot of people, not just small organizations, but really the entire southeast of the United States, which was the Colonial Pipeline attack. I think this was also about 3 years ago. The Colonial Pipeline attack, basically Colonial Pipeline in the southeast U.S., transferring all the basically gasoline across the southeast. They got hit with ransomware. Simple, all it was just their servers got encrypted with a virus. And now from there, what happened was nobody could transfer gas. And when I was living in Florida at the time, there were lines around the gas stations for a few days simply because nobody knew if the gas was going to start flowing again. That's how dangerous it's going to affect real life scenarios. Or in the case of actual ransomware events across, let's say MSPs. There was the Kaseya attack from 2021. There was the SolarWinds Orion. There have been multiple vulnerabilities or exploits found in either our most common tools or our most powerful solutions out there. And that's where ThreatLocker jumps in, because we understand that, all right, let's allow these applications to run, but let's control them. Let's make sure that something like that does not happen. And this is where we talk about ring fencing. Ring fencing is our power to say that this application can only do what we tell it to do, whether it can talk to other applications, read or write to files, or reach out to the internet. A good example, something that anybody out there can deal with every single day, a Word document. Simple as that. Word's probably one of the most popular tools out there that everybody will use. I mean, if you're a kid right now in school, you're going to be using Microsoft Word basically on day one at that point. Well, the thing is, somebody could get an email like this saying that, hey, IT knows something suspicious. We are requiring everyone to change their passwords right now. And here's some links to assist us with it. Now, if you've heard the recent events over the last few years, you don't want to trust every link. This may look very trustworthy, but we are usually trained to go ahead and hover our mouse over it just to see what it's going to open up. And as you can see here, it says that this is going to open up PowerShell on my computer. Not going to open up something within Google or open up this office.com reset password link. So it's going to do something strange. This is what we would call a phishing link. You might have heard of phishing emails, spear phishing, phishing texts. There's a lot of things that we see nowadays that this comes every often. I tell you right now, the amount of times I've gotten a phone, like a text message of one of those, like, hey, your Amazon package didn't get delivered. Please click on this link so we can send it over to you. I get that message probably like once every 2 weeks or so, and I just ignore it. Now, I'm one of those people that I'm pretty well aware of it, but I know that there's people out there that maybe they're not paying attention. People sometimes are being rushed. Sometimes some people think like, no, wait, I am getting that package. Maybe I should open that up. Some people might think like, well, what should I worry about? I have nothing important. There's nothing that should be really targeted from me. But that's how they get you. That's how they know that anybody could really be a target. So what happens if somebody clicks on this? Obviously, in most situations, some of your tools, some of your devices, some of your applications will let you know that, hey, you're going to jump somewhere else. Be careful. But what if we're not paying attention? Maybe we're rushed. Maybe we're panicking, saying that, no, we need to open up we need to open up this link to help reset our password. But it doesn't open up here. It fails. And it's not because of PowerShell being denied or anything like that. What's happening here is that we actually ring-fence Office by default. This is something that ThreatLocker already takes into account, and we already set this up before you deploy out the agents to say that Office cannot talk to any of these applications. PowerShell, Command Prompt, the diagnostic tool of Windows, Run DLL, a lot of core parts of Windows that, yes, it's going to be common on your devices, but there's no business for Office to talk to any of these applications. That is going to be the goal of ring fencing. And as you can see here from all these little icons that you see with a little yellow fence, we've implemented that across some of the most common, well-known applications. So the initial onboarding, again, very quickly to set up with ThreatLocker. And I do want to showcase another example with something that we may not think of nowadays. Something like this PowerShell command. Now, I want to bring this into attention because there's different attacks that could happen. Yes, phishing emails, maybe somebody's trying to run that ransomware file, but there's still other vulnerabilities or other zero trust mindsets that we need to take into account. Like, for example, what about our own devices? This PowerShell command can actually run on its own. Somebody can actually manually type this in if they know how to type it in properly. But also, let's think about USB devices. We've seen some things about, people saying, hey, if you find a USB on the side of the road, don't pick it up. Leave it there. If it's not yours, there's no need to grab it or use it because it could be what we call a rubber ducky. Essentially a device that could be used to execute malicious actions on your computer. And it doesn't have to be just a USB drive. I've seen USB charging cables, or I've even seen, what was the one I saw recently? I saw like a light bulb that you can plug up with a USB that it can actually do this rubber ducky sort of commands. What else have I seen? I've seen headsets, keyboards, mouse. I even seen, I think the last thing I saw that I think it was a charger for a gaming console that can actually be used to damage the gaming console as well. So
Or
nowadays.
charging ports in an airport.
That's true. Yeah. If somebody leaves a charging cable on one of those, hey, charger station here, I never use it. I just leave it alone. I sometimes unplug it because if there's nobody around and somebody leaves a cable, number one, if you're in the airport, why would you leave your cable? There's no reason to do that. But still, I'm not going to plug that in because that could really, one, damage your situation, and two, I've seen people who have done that, and I kid you not, they're on the phone call with their bank a few hours later, trying to figure out where all their money went, because that's how bad it can get. So, what if something like this tries to run on our device? Well, let's think about what this is going to do. This command is going to take some files from my computer, my documents folder to be specific, and upload it all to a Google Drive via the internet. Now, that sort of process, it's actually pretty well known. It's actually pretty common. A lot of different tools and applications do that sort of cloud backup. They're sending data to the cloud to make sure that's synced up to your computer, which is pretty common. So a lot of security tools wouldn't really be paying attention to it. But let's talk about this. It's being done through PowerShell. Now, PowerShell is a core part of Windows, but that doesn't mean that every user knows that PowerShell exists. Now, mind you, before I became an engineer for ThreatLocker, I might have heard PowerShell once or twice because of like movies or video games that talked about it, but I didn't know how to work it. I just knew that, oh yeah, hacking, think of the Matrix, think of all the hacking noises, I'm in, ha ha ha. I keep thinking of that. But in reality, it's not all that flashy. I wish it was, but it really isn't. So what happens if somebody wants to do this? Well, should my regular end user be able to use PowerShell like that? Probably not. So what happens if it tries to run? Nothing. You can verify that in the unified audit or with ThreatLocker just to help figure out what happened quickly. We can actually see the system tray icon of this agent, and we can see that these document items were being processed by PowerShell. PowerShell is trying to modify all these files, but it was all ring-fenced. Because already by default, we say that PowerShell should not be doing any of that sort of action or processes. PowerShell should not be encrypting your data. PowerShell should not be moving files around or deleting files on its own, or PowerShell should not be reaching out to the internet. Because another big thing that we see PowerShell do in a lot of different attacks nowadays is start a connection between your device and a hostile device across the world. So by doing this sort of controlling on the network side of things, if you accidentally click on that link, it wouldn't do anything. It'll just basically be a dead link that even the attacker's like, wait a minute, I see that they open up the email and I see they click the link, but it's not doing anything. That's the goal with ring fencing. And this is something that we will actually assist in setting up and onboard with you to make sure that these applications, if we need to create some exclusions, some necessary permissions that's necessary, we can make sure these applications work for you and not against you. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do want to show for right now with ThreatLocker. As you can see on my left side, if you want a little bit of a tease, there's still a lot more modules out there, but this is just one level of that zero trust mindset. You can keep going on and on and on because it can be application focused, file focused, network focused, even on the physical side as well. Definitely something worth keeping an eye on. Yeah. Anything else to add there, Chris, that you think I should do?
I think you covered it all. Very, very nicely done. Thank you so much, Freddy.
Perfect, perfect. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you back the reins here. So you can take us home.
So basically, this kind of brings us home here to get started with your zero trust journey. If you're looking for help, look no further. We're here to set up and implement zero trust framework, and we're hoping that you'll make us the right partner for your business. Some things to keep in mind. The four main points here with zero trust is it reduces the risk of insider threats, secure the remote workforce, preserve the consumer privacy, and protect the hybrid cloud. So if you remember, most of the stuff now is in the cloud, and basically our job is to protect you and your organization from these cybersecurity threats. And we thank you for joining us today on our cybersecurity ThreatLocker demo here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And we're hoping to have other webinars in the future, maybe the first Thursday of every month. You can visit our website, questnetworkservices.com, and click on webinars to see when the next webinar is that we're going to have. I know our next one's going to be on the Windows 10 end of life that's coming up in October. So feel free to tune in for that. And on behalf of Quest Network Services, I thank you so much for joining us. And Freddy, any last words here?
I think just have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend, stay safe, and take care, y'all.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a wonderful week and weekend.